He wrote his final love letter, not with ink, but with his own blood in the midst of a blazing battlefield. The sky was torn apart by explosions. Across the fire-stained night flares carved searing streaks of light falling like dying stars. The stench of gunpowder mixed with scorched earth, thick choking. Wind swept through cratered ground carrying screams, desperate cries for help, and the relentless rattle of gunfire. The battlefield was no longer land, no longer sky, it was chaos itself suspended between life and death. He lay there, his uniform shredded, soaked in mud and blood. His breath came in ragged bursts, chest heaving as if it might split. Bullets hissed past his ears. A shell had just landed a few feet away, throwing dirt and stone that covered his face. In what felt like his last moment, he fumbled at his chest pocket, pulling out a crumpled piece of paper and a pen with a broken nib. His hand trembled. His vision blurred. He could no longer tell if it was blood or tears, but he knew he had to write. He had to leave something behind. If tomorrow never came, at least this letter had to find its way home to the one he loved. Crooked lines began to appear. Every stroke felt like a knife cutting into his heart. Every word was a scream against the thunder of falling shells. The ink thinned. He bit down hard, forcing the pen to bleed what little was left. Then the nib snapped. The page stared back at him, unfinished, broken. He looked at his hand, blood seeped from a wound in his left arm. There was no other choice. He dipped the pen into his own wound and kept writing. Word by word, letter by letter, bright crimson. The flare light fell across his face, ashen drained. Yet his eyes still burned. He heard footsteps rushing closer. Comrades calling his name. But he didn't stop. In that moment, the world held only him, the paper, and the image of the woman waiting back home. He wrote her name. He wrote, "I'm sorry." He wrote, "I love you." Every word was a blade, but also a fire keeping him alive for one more breath. The scene slowed. The explosions faded to a dull roar. Only the pounding of his heart remained. Fast. Too fast. Then weaker. The pen shook violently. The last line smeared, swallowed by blood and tears. He folded the page, stuffed it into an envelope, pressed it against his chest like a vow. Another shell exploded nearby. Earth swallowed him in shadow. Darkness closed in. But his hand still clutched the letter as if holding on to his very soul. The camera lingers on one detail at the corner of the paper. Blood had spread into the shape of a trembling red flower quivering in the night wind. The young soldier forced his eyes open one last time, searching the distance where he believed a home, a window's glow, and the woman he loved were still waiting. His lips moved. No one heard. Only the wind carried his whisper, dissolving into smoke and fire. "Please, don't let go. Wait for me." The screen darkens. Bombs still thunder, voices still cry. But somewhere hidden in the wreckage, a blood-soaked letter waits to be delivered, and a question rises raw, unrelenting. Will that letter ever reach the hands of the woman he loved? Or will it remain forever buried among the ashes of war? The battlefield was torn apart by bombs. The earth was no longer earth, it had become craters filled with mud and blood. Trees that once stood green and alive were now nothing but charred, broken stumps, leaning like blackened spears. The air was thick with smoke, and the stinging reek of gunpowder clawing down into the lungs. In that wasteland, squads of young soldiers moved like shadows. Day and night no longer existed, only a single shade of ashen gray echoing with death everywhere. He, the young soldier, pressed himself against the wall of a makeshift trench. Cold sweat ran down his temples. His heartbeat pounded louder than the gunfire outside. In his hand, a small photograph, worn edges frayed from being touched too many times. In the photo, a young woman smiled. Gentle. Her eyes glowed like candlelight in the dark. He stared at it, then quickly tucked it back into his chest pocket. It wasn't just a picture. It was the only anchor keeping him tied to life. The ground shook again. A shell slammed nearby, showering dirt across his sweat-soaked hair. Around him, soldiers shouted and sprinted toward cover. One fell right in front of him, blood splattering across his arm. He no longer trembled the way he had on his first day of war. But his chest still clenched tight every time a comrade collapsed. He did not allow himself to cry. Out here, tears could only flow inward. Night fell. Darkness pressed heavy over the field. Somewhere, insects still sang, mingling with the hiss of stray bullets. He sat against the cold trench wall, pulling out a small handkerchief. White fabric, blue-stitched edges with the first letter of her name embroidered in the corner. The woman he loved. He pressed it to his face, inhaling deeply. The faint scent lingered, faded, but still there. Like magic, it cut through the blood, through the smoke, and for one fragile moment he felt as though he were home. Meanwhile, back home, the little riverside village was in harvest season. The sky clear, sunlight golden across red-tiled roofs and ripened rice fields. Children ran barefoot along the dirt paths, faces radiant despite the dust on their legs. Peace itself so stark against the chaos of war. In a small wooden house at the edge of the village, she sat by the window, the woman he loved. Light streamed through the frame, brushing her long dark hair with gold. On the table stacked neatly were letters, faded fragile. Each line, each shaky word a heartbeat he had sent to her. She opened a wooden box. Inside lay a keepsake, a simple silver bracelet, etched with old patterns. He had given it to her before he left for war. "Keep this," he had said, "as you keep my heart." She touched it gently, feeling the cold metal seep into her skin. Her chest tightened with longing. Every night she prayed for one more letter, prayed that he was still alive. But lately no letters had come. Each day stretched into the next, gnawing at her with silence. Neighbors whispered. Some urged her to let go, believing he was already gone. Others, crueler, muttered that he had forgotten her. She pressed her lips together, clutching the box of letters to her chest as tears slipped down her cheeks. Deep inside, she refused to believe them. She believed he was alive. Believed that somewhere far away he still thought of her. Yet her faith flickered, as fragile as a candle trembling in the wind. Back at the front, he moved with his comrades through the night. Boots sank deep into mud, breath ragged. They were all exhausted. A young soldier at his side whispered, "Do you think we'll make it out alive?" He gave no answer, because he didn't know. But against his chest, the photo and handkerchief pressed close. And he knew one thing: he had to live one more day to send one more letter. In a rare moment of quiet, he pulled out a sheet of paper and a worn-down pencil. The dim glow of a trench lantern lit each stroke. Slowly, carefully, he wrote about his longing, about the smoke and fire, about the endless nights with only the sound of his heart for company. But then the siren wailed. He folded the page quickly, stuffing it into his helmet. Life here never allowed a letter to be finished. No one knew if tomorrow would ever bring the chance to write again. At home, night also descended. She sat by a candle, its wavering light tracing the fatigue on her face. She lifted the silver bracelet to her lips. Outside, the wind stirred the trees, carrying whispers through the leaves. She murmured, "Where are you? Are you still alive?" Her voice trembled into the dark, carried away, hoping someone, anyone might hear. She opened the old letters, reading line after line. His handwriting, simple, hurried, often messy, but brimming with love. She smiled through tears, but the smile faded. 3 months. It had been 3 months without a letter. 3 months in war, a lifetime. The camera slows. At one end of the world, a soldier clenched an embroidered handkerchief, bombs shaking the earth. At the other end, a woman pressed a silver bracelet to her heart, praying in silence. 2 souls, 2 worlds, bound by the same longing, the same fragile hope, and the same unspoken question. Is love strong enough to outlast war, to outlast death itself, so that his words might still find their way home? The battlefield left no room for silence. Every day was devoured by gunfire explosions and the brief, piercing screams of souls ripped from their bodies. The young soldier had long since lost count of how many had fallen around him. The ground was drenched in blood. Hands, once reaching upward, fell limp. Eyes stared wide, unblinking, never to close again. He ran with his unit, slogging through, mud rifle in hand, ears ringing from shells bursting just feet away. He was no longer the timid boy who had enlisted. Now he was a living ghost, moving only by instinct. Every step weighed heavy, but his heart still beat with one fierce rhythm, a rhythm that called the name of the girl waiting back home. Live, he told himself. I must live. To write another letter, to make it back. One rainy night inside a damp, crumbling trench, he pulled out paper and pencil once more. The dim glow of an oil lamp flickered across a face blackened by smoke and war. Drops of rain leaked through the dirt overhead, falling onto the page. He wrote quickly, his hand trembling. His longing poured into words. He wrote of nightmares that returned again and again, of the faces of fallen comrades. He could never forget of the stench of blood that clung to his hands, no matter how much he scrubbed. And he wrote of hope, fragile hope that she was still waiting. He folded the letter and handed it to a young courier. The boy promised to deliver it to base. For the first time in weeks, the soldier felt a spark of relief. But the letter never made it. The convoy was ambushed on the road. Bodies and mail alike burned with the trucks. His words, his hope, turned to ash. Back home, she waited. Day after day, she walked to the riverbank, following the flight of birds. To her, every bird was a sign. She believed a letter would come. But then a month passed. 2, 3. The wooden box remained empty. Not a single new word. The whispers began. Old women shook their heads. No letters means he's dead. Others, sharper, sneered. Maybe he's found someone else. She waits in vain. Their words cut deep. She bit her lip, eyes red, but stayed silent. Alone at night she wept. Wept for the endless silence. Wept for a faith that thinned day by day. A wealthy man in the village who had long coveted her saw his chance. He came bearing gifts, whispering to her parents. Why should she wait for a soldier who knows if he's even alive? Marry her off and her future will be secure. Her parents hesitated. The pressure mounted. She resisted, clutching her silver bracelet, screaming, "I will wait. Even if it kills me, I will wait." Back on the battlefield, he survived another raid. Shells rained down. He and his comrades dove into the trenches. A man collapsed beside him, blood pooling wide. His grip on his rifle shook. In that moment, he drew out the embroidered handkerchief with her initial, pressed it to his lips. A rushed, trembling kiss. Then back to his chest. "For you," he roared, charging into the storm. Bullets sliced the air. He went down but lived. A gash tore through his shoulder. Teeth clenched, he dragged himself back into the trench. Blood poured, staining the handkerchief red, yet his eyes still burned. If this is the last time, he thought, then I must write, even if it's only a single word. He grabbed paper, his hand shaking violently. He wrote, but rain smeared the ink. Desperate, he tore a strip of cloth from his uniform, dipped it into his wound, and scrawled in blood, "Don't believe their lies. I am alive. I will return." Back home, she was cornered. Family pressed harder. The wealthy man grew bolder. At a village gathering, he stood tall and declared, "She will be my wife." Why wait for a soldier who will never return? Laughter filled the hall. She stood, trembling eyes brimming. No one stood beside her. That night, she knelt by the window, silver bracelet in hand. The wind blew. The candle died. Darkness swallowed her. She collapsed onto the table, whispering through tears, "My love, please don't leave me." The front burned again. News spread his battalion was surrounded. No one knew who lived, who died. Casualty lists grew long. Telegrams of death rolled into the village. People looked at her with pity. But inside her, a small flame refused to die. If no death notice has come, then he must still be alive. At one end of the world, he staggered through the mud eyes, ablaze, clutching a blood-soaked handkerchief. At the other, she sat in the dark silver bracelet clenched tight, eyes fixed on the door, praying for a silhouette to return. They were torn apart by war, crushed by silence, tested by fate. But they both clung to the same vow, never let go. And then, a rumor swept through the village. A unit had returned from the front carrying the few letters that had survived. At the riverside, villagers gathered. Her hand shook as she ran. In the courier's grip, an envelope frayed and stained deep red. The scene froze. Her heartbeat thundered. The screen went black. Is it his letter? Or just another scrap of paper? From a man who will never return. Rain poured relentlessly over the shattered battlefield. Mud ran red with blood, thick with the stench of death. The young soldier curled against the trench wall, his shoulder wrapped in torn cloth. The bandage soaked into a dark stain. His breath came fast and shallow, every gust of wind stabbing through his chest. The night was razor cold. A flare burst outside its light, cutting across his pale face. Yet in his eyes still burned a fragile fire hope. Beside him, another soldier leaned against an ammo crate, gaunt hair matted and wild. It was Harlan, the comrade who had fought beside him since their first day. Harlan sat silent for a long time, then sighed. Turning, "Do you still have the strength to write?" The young soldier forced a faint smile, shaking his head. His hand trembled, the pen heavy as iron. Still, he dug out a crumpled scrap of paper and a small embroidered handkerchief. Harlan's gaze sharpened when he saw it. "Whose is that?" he asked. The young soldier clutched it tightly, voice hoarse. "Hers. The girl waiting for me." Harlan nodded slowly. His eyes softened as if something clicked inside him. He asked no more, only watched as his comrade scratched trembling words onto the page. Each line carved like a wound. The ink ran dry. Blood replaced it. The paper turned red. Suddenly, Harlan reached out, laying a hand on his shoulder. "Give it to me. If you can't go on, I'll carry it. I swear." The young soldier looked at him through the haze and nodded. His shaking hand passed over the blood-soaked letter. For a moment, the battlefield fell silent. Bombs, bullets gone. Only a vow remained between two men. One would live to carry another's love home. The next day, orders came to retreat. Harlan tucked the letter and the handkerchief into his chest, then hoisted his comrade onto his back. Shells screamed overhead. Shouts filled the air. Harlan roared, firing back as he ran. Mud splashed his face. A bullet tore into his back, but he didn't stop. Every step was a mountain. He stumbled, tumbling into a crater. Mud swallowed him. Blood poured. He screamed, clawing to rise. His hand brushed the handkerchief at his chest. Strangely, through blood and filth, its faint scent lingered, like a warm breeze, like a hand pressed to his heart, pulling him up. Gritting his teeth, Harlan dragged himself out. He knew he wasn't living for himself. He was living for his friend, for a promise, for a girl far away who had never seen his face. Meanwhile, back home, the girl sat by her window. Rain pattered against the roof, dripping steadily from the eaves. She held a silver bracelet in her hands. Night after night, she whispered his name. But this time, her chest trembled with a strange certainty. Her heart beat wildly. Tears blurred her eyes. She clenched the bracelet tight. Feeling warmth spread as if the distance of 1,000 miles had suddenly dissolved. Back on the battlefield, Harlan finally broke through the encirclement, staggering toward base. The letter was still there against his chest, soaked through but intact. He collapsed at the gate. Medics rushed, shouting. In his last breaths, he clutched a rescuer's arm and rasped, "This letter. Get it to her. Don't let it be lost." His hand fell limp. On his chest, the embroidered handkerchief was stained red. Days later, among hundreds of battered envelopes, one torn and blood-marked was set aside. A supply officer frowned at it, marked it urgent, and passed it on. He didn't know what it contained, only that the eyes of the dying man had begged with all they had left. In the village, word spread the soldiers had returned, bringing letters. The girl raced to the riverside, heart pounding. Amid the crowd, she saw a courier lift a crumpled, blood-specked envelope high. He called out her beloved's name. The village fell silent. Trembling, she stepped forward, both hands shaking as she received it. The letter was cold and damp. The metallic scent of dried blood still clung to it. She burst into tears. She didn't dare open it yet. Her fingers traced the blurred handwriting on the front, messy, but unmistakably his. She ran home, bolted the door, lit a candle. The room glowed, but her heart was still cloaked in shadow. She bit her lip and carefully tore the envelope open. Inside the lines flowed some faint, some smeared, but still legible. He wrote of his final days of dreams filled only with her face. He confessed he no longer feared death, only that he might never say "I love you" one last time. And he revealed a secret: the handkerchief she had given him had saved his life more than once. Each time the bullets flew past, I pressed it to my chest. It calmed me. It reminded me you were waiting. If I've survived this long, it's because of you, because of the love you stitched into every thread. Her tears fell onto the paper, smearing the ink further. She sobbed, clutching it to her heart. The sound of rain outside mixed with her broken cries. But the letter did not end there. At the bottom, words grew darker, written in haste, the ink replaced by blood. "If you are reading this, then I did it. I sent part of my heart back to you. Don't let go. I will return." The sentence broke off, blotched and uneven. No one knew in what state he wrote it, but every mark pulsed like a heartbeat. She sat frozen. A storm of questions tore through her. Was he alive? Or was this his last farewell? Was there still a future for their love? Or only a blood-stained letter left behind? The camera turns. On the battlefield, a lone figure staggers through the rain, eyes still burning, chest empty where the handkerchief once lay. At home, the girl clutches the tear-soaked letter, silver bracelet glinting in the candlelight. Two images overlap, merging as one, and a question echoes through the night. Is love strong enough to keep a promise? Will he truly return? Or will all that remain be these trembling words? The screen fades to black, wind howls, the candle dies. That evening, the little village seemed to shrink under a suffocating tension. In the square, a makeshift stage had been set, draped with a red cloth. Oil lamps hung high, their dim yellow glow washing over curious faces. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. At the center stood Lamb, the wealthy man of the village. Dressed in a brand new silk robe, feather fan in hand, he smirked as his voice rang out for all to hear. "She has waited long enough. He's not coming back. Today, before you all, I formally ask for her hand." Scattered claps broke the silence. Some villagers nodded, others looked away, unwilling to speak. At the edge of the stage, the young woman stood pale, clutching her silver bracelet. Her eyes were red, her chest heaving. Every word, every clap pierced her like a blade. Lam strode forward, hand extended. "Think about it. Why wait for a hopeless soldier when you could have a life of wealth?" She stepped back. One pace, then another. Her back hit the wooden post. No escape. Tears fell, landing on the silver bracelet. In her mind, his image appeared, blood smoke, the blurred lines of a letter. Then suddenly a cry from the crowd. A letter. There's another letter. The square erupted. Voices buzzed in shock. A courier, drenched in sweat, pushed through the throng, raising a crumpled envelope stained with blood and mud. The crowd fell silent. Only her heartbeat thundered. Breathless, the courier held it out. "For you, from the front. The name. It's his." Her hands shook as she took it. The paper was cold, brittle, darkened with dried blood. Her throat tightened. Lamb sneered, scoffing. What does a torn scrap prove? How do you know it's truly his and not some trick? She lifted her gaze. Her eyes blazed. Clutching the envelope, she stepped into the center of the square. The villagers leaned closer. The lamp's glow lit her tear-streaked face, but her stare was unwavering, fierce. Slowly, she tore the envelope. The paper ripped. Inside lay a blood-stained letter. The metallic tang of iron rose with it. The crowd shuddered. Her voice trembled as she began to read. If you are reading this, it means I am still alive in every word. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I know this: I love you. I have never stopped thinking of you. Do not believe anyone else. Believe only in our hearts. The murmurs died. The square froze. A gust stirred. The lamps flickered. His words rang like a voice carried from the edge of death. She choked back a sob, then read again, this time louder, steadier. The handkerchief you made has saved me more than once. I press it to my chest and it keeps me alive. If I am still breathing, it is because of you, because of the love you stitched into every thread. If you hold this letter now, then we have not lost. Wait for me. Silence. Absolute. Lamb's face drained of color. His fan slipped from his hand. The letter. It could be forged, he stammered, but her voice rose, cutting through his protest. These are his words. Bloodied, smeared, broken. But I know them. No one can forge a heart like this. The crowd stirred. Whispers turned to nods. It's his handwriting. Only true love could write like that. She lifted the letter high, tears streaming as she cried out, He is alive, and I will wait. No matter how long I will wait. The moment hung in stillness. Even the insects seemed to fall silent. No one dared laugh. No one dared scoff. The villagers' eyes shifted from doubt to reverence. Lamb's face twisted. He lunged forward, reaching for the letter, but the villagers stepped in, blocking his path. Their support for him was gone. Their eyes had turned. Clutching the letter to her chest, she wept, but smiled. A proud smile. A smile of faith restored in the darkness. The blood-stained letter trembled in her hand beneath the swaying lamp. The villagers' faces were heavy, silent, transfixed. Lamb stepped back, sweat beading his forehead. She stood firm, her eyes blazing like fire. The air grew thick, breathless, as if the whole village waited, and then from afar came the sound of hurried footsteps. Hooves thundered on the road. A voice shouted, A convoy of wounded has returned, and among them, a man bearing the same name as in the letter. The echo of hooves shook the night, hearts clenched tight. Is it truly him? Has the soldier returned? Or is it only a name fading on the list of the wounded? The screen cuts to black. That night, the entire village seemed to hold its breath. News of the wounded convoy spread fast. Oil lamps flickered along the dirt road leading in. Villagers crowded on both sides, eyes wide, hearts pounding. The sound of hooves echoed closer, each beat like a drum against their chests. She stood in the middle of the crowd, clutching the blood-stained letter to her chest. Her heart raced, half hope, half fear. Her eyes, dry and unblinking, were fixed on the dark horizon where the silhouettes of riders slowly emerged. The wagons drew near. Groans of pain, harsh coughing, the crunch of wheels on gravel. The sharp smell of medicine mixed with the stench of dried blood. Soldiers wrapped in bandages, some missing arms. Others' legs passed before the villagers. The crowd fell silent. No words. Only footsteps. Only breath. Only the whisper of wind through the trees. The commander began reading names. With each name, voices murmured, families rushed forward, tears spilling as they embraced broken bodies. Joy and sorrow intertwined. Then it came. His name. The square froze. She felt struck by lightning. Her heart stopped, her knees buckled. Then she surged forward, pushing through the crowd. And there he was, a thin figure wrapped in white bandages across his shoulder and chest, stepping down from the cart. His stride unsteady, trembling. His face hollow, beard ragged. But his eyes still burned a fire unbroken. Him. She stood frozen, tears blurring her vision. Her hand flew to her mouth, shaking. He saw her, his eyes reddened. He took one step, then another, each one tearing at his wounds. Blood seeped through the bandages, staining red, but he did not stop. In that moment, time collapsed. No voices, no wind, nothing except two pairs of eyes meeting in the darkness. She broke forward. He collapsed into her arms. They clung to each other as if they could dissolve into one. Her sobs tore free. I waited. I knew you'd come back. I knew it. His trembling whisper at her ear, I promised, and I kept my word. The village stood silent. Then muffled sobs spread. Old men wiped their eyes. Children stared wide. Even those who had mocked them lowered their heads in shame. From the shadows, Lamb, the wealthy suitor, watched. his face pale sweat beading his brow. The villager's eyes turned on him now, eyes filled with scorn. He shrank back, slinking away. No one followed. No one cared. That night, in the small wooden house, a single candle burned. He lay on the bed, wounds bandaged, still gripping the embroidered handkerchief. She sat beside him, silver bracelet in her hand, her gaze never leaving his face. He smiled weakly, but his eyes were gentle. Do you see? It was you who saved me. Every time I wanted to fall, the handkerchief reminded me you were waiting. That love never dies. She squeezed his hand, tears streaming. And don't you see, it was your letter that saved me. It held me when the world tried to break me. It told me you were alive. Their hands interlaced. An old bloodstain on the handkerchief. A new tear glistening on the bracelet. Two keepsakes. Two souls, bound forever in one eternal moment. Dawn. Golden light streamed through the window across his face. For the first time in months, he saw the sun unshadowed by smoke. Birds chirped outside. The faint smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen. He rose slowly, painfully, but his eyes shone bright. She slipped her arms around his shoulders. Together they looked out over golden fields. The war was not yet over. But in that instant, they had already won. War can take youth, it can take blood, it can take tears. But it cannot take love. True love rises above it all. Even if all that remains is a blood-stained letter, it is enough to keep two hearts alive and bring them home to each other. The camera lingers on the letter upon the table. Words blurred with dried blood. Sunlight strikes the page, making them glimmer as if written in gold. And his whisper echoes one last time, distant, carried both from the battlefield and from his heart. If I had just one more day to live, I would still write to you. Because this love will never die. The first light of dawn still clung to the wooden window frame. On the table lay the blood-stained letter. Its edges frayed, its words blurred, yet its weight remained whole. A gentle breeze drifted in, stirring the trembling lines as if they were still whispering, I will return. The camera slowly pulls away from the window, sweeping across the small room where she sits in silence, her hands resting on the silver bracelet. Her eyes are closed, but at the corners of her lips, just the faintest smile. Outside, the golden fields shimmer endlessly, each stalk of rice glinting like an ocean of light. The viewer's heart pauses, gripped by a single haunting question. If it were, would you have enough faith to wait for a letter written in blood? Do you believe love can outlast war, even death itself? The screen fades into the glow of a lone candle in the night. The flame flickers, fragile yet unyielding. A voice rises, trembling but full of truth. Sometimes a letter is more than paper and ink. Sometimes it is blood, a heartbeat, a soul poured out entirely for the one you love. And sometimes, one fragile belief held with all your heart is enough to change the fate of two lives. Faces fade into the darkness, eyes glisten. And then the vision of her standing in the square holding the blood-stained letter high, crying out through tears. He's alive. I will wait. Silence. A silence louder than 1,000 gunshots. The audience itself can hardly breathe. Do you believe in the power of love? Do you believe that a promise, an embroidered handkerchief, a letter written in blood, can keep someone alive through war? And if it were you, would you be willing to wait, even if it cost your entire youth? The sky breaks open. Streaks of morning pierce the black clouds. White birds soar overhead. The perfect contrast, war's wreckage still lingers, yet dawn always arrives. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment below. What do you believe in more, the power of war or the power of love? Share this video with someone you love as a reminder that we must never let go of faith. And don't forget to subscribe, because there are more stories to come. Stories that can stir your soul, stories that might just change the way you see life. The camera lingers one last time on the letter upon the table. The blood has spread into the shape of a crimson flower. A faint breeze stirs the paper, making it quiver. And a distant whisper echoes, part battlefield, part dream. Don't let go. Wait for me.